Thank you, Sarah. I think you might spot very quickly that this is not my preferred position. My preferred position is to being in a tractor, which you might see in a minute. I don't really do PowerPoint, as I told Nick. So the pictures are really to give you a flavour of the farm and what we're doing on the farm and somewhat of the complexity of what we do as growers. Having said that, I'm going to use the old-fashioned method of, because I left my notes behind, I've handwritten them out, but I would also point out that it's a sort of interesting intro to my talk in that I'm taking, reading off these notes, and it might be a bit stumbled because I haven't done a talk for a number of years now, so bear with me. I hope to be able to talk to you about social media, and as I said, I'm a grower, so I'm not as slick as some of you are at this sort of thing. And where I want to start is with this. I didn't know how this worked a few years ago, but I've been growing veg. I'll give you a quick intro. I've been growing veg for 20 years. I started as Westmill Organics. I sort of mogrified into Coleshill Organics. We grew quite rapidly in the early days of veg, of organic, when organic was sort of on the rise quite swiftly, and we went to from about 20 boxes on about 2 acres to 450 boxes plus 3 farmers markets in London. And that was on 30 acres of field-scale veg and about 10 polytunnels. And you'll be able to see just, the size of the polytunnels and things as we go through. The business has changed very rapidly. Number one, my partnership has dissolved and I'm now a sole trader. And I've gone down in scale in terms of the number of boxes from about 450 to about 100. But the complexity of the business has increased enormously, and that's where this comes in, and that's where social media comes in. And also, I think, just a very brief history, many of you will be familiar with the organic marketplace and how that has changed. We've always had ups and downs in the organic marketplace. A very good friend of mine, Ian Tolhurst, has said, there's nothing new when we get a depression or a recession. Basically, we just follow the market trend and what people want to spend their money on most of the time. And box schemes are no different to that. We've had a few quite tricky years, I have to say. However, having said that, I think there's a real bounce back in the market, and I won't get stuck on the marketplace because I'm meant to be talking about social media. But I will keep coming back to this little toy and tool. I see this as almost as important as my tractor. I used to joke about my tractor and say, it's the tool of my trade. Well, this has become almost as important, and I think maybe more important, because we can grow the veg, and I think you can see I've got a few examples here, and it's not really I know some of you back can't see them. This is mainly, I feel more comfortable when I've got some of my vegetables from the field next to me. So it's not really to show off. I put it in rather a sort of unflattering mushroom box, which that's not how we sell our vegetables. Anyway, moving swiftly onto social media, and where we got to basically with leafleting and some of my talk might jump around a little bit. I'll try and keep to the script, but I haven't really prepared this, so you might have to just bear with me on the jumping around bit. Essentially, most of our most important way of selling is through word of mouth. And what a friend of mine, who I'll talk to you about in a minute, from a company who he's just set up called Green Owl Media, who runs my Twitter and Facebook, he said to me the other day, well, that's a great phrase, actually. That's the Facebook and Twitter, as far as I can work out, are the new word of mouth. Because when I first started, what we did, we sold 20 boxes, and then people used to have a party or sit around with their friends, and they would tell their friends that it tastes good, because that's one of the main selling points for our vegetables, that obviously they taste good. Not all organic veg tastes good, as Raymond Blanc said the other day in the Telegraph, but I hope, when people taste it, they can then talk about it. So word of mouth, is, I think, the most important marketing tool within, from a small-scale producer's point of view. That is really our, aim, is to get people to talk about our vegetables. Having said that, social media has come along, and it didn't exist when I first started growing vegetables. So over the last 4 or 5 years, social media has come along in a very, very big way, and I'll give you some statistics in a minute which I think are relevant. And basically, this, I feel, is the new word of mouth, social media. Some of this you might be very familiar with, and excuse me if you know all this stuff already, but it's new to me. This is completely new to me, all this technology, and I've had to get used to it very, very quickly. Because leafleting, essentially, doesn't really work anymore. I think Abel and Cole did some research on this, and it went down from the take-up rate of putting leaflets out. I can't remember the exact figure, but it went down incredibly in the last 10 years. You used to put out, well, Abel and Cole can put out, tens of thousands, whereas we put out thousands of leaflets through people's doors. And the take-up rate from putting out 1,000 leaflets dropped enormously. So that was a hint that actually people were either getting slightly blasé about getting leaflets through their doors, or it just wasn't working anymore. This seems to be something that people are using more and more, and so that's really my hunch was this was the way to market vegetables. What we do obviously is sell direct. And what I feel that I want to do when I sort of recreated my business a couple of years ago was that I wanted to try and create more of a community around Westmill Organics, around the farm. And this has been around for a long time, this idea. I think the Soil Association promoted it, organic producers have been promoting it for a long time, that we create this story. And that's really, a lot of the flavour of Abergavenny is Food Festival has been about the producers' stories. And it's still really, really important. I mean, it sells in supermarkets, it sells in farmers' markets, it sells basically, and it now sells online, of course, and that's if you've got your story online. And I think as a small producer, it's probably one of the most powerful tools we have, is that story online. And also the idea of feeling part of I call it a club. It's like, I haven't sort of put this online because I think it sounds a bit cheesy, but I call it the Westmill Club, and that's what I talked to Pete Mundy about. The guy who does my Facebook stuff. Maybe I should just, having alluded to that, maybe I should just say how that came about. Pete basically was the editor of the Organic Farming magazine for the Soil Association, and I knew him previously from various meetings that I'd had with him at the Soil Association. And when he left the Soil Association, he got in touch with me about a year after he'd left, and he said, would you be a guinea pig to experiment with me running, your Facebook and Twitter? Now, a lot of big businesses in the organic world pay a lot of money for that, and small producers often can't do that. So I jumped at the chance. We did a 3-month trial last year, and I think it worked really well. And he is just brilliant. And one of the reasons he's brilliant is because he's totally immersed in the world of organic and the politics of organic and the politics of food. And of course, when we go down that route, essentially, my business has never just been about growing vegetables. As many of you will be familiar with, a lot of us growers can be quite political with a small p, but we are very interested in the politics of food, and that's where, putting our message out on a much bigger platform is important. And it's also very important because that link with our customers gives our customers an understanding of why they want to buy our food in particular, and the link they have with our farm, and why that is something they feel empathy with. Okay, so I think that's just the background. And Pete has he's done articles, and he's in the very infancy of setting up this for other growers. But I think my sense is, and it's only anecdotal, is that it's been working really, really well. I'll talk to you a little bit in a minute about how we target certain markets on Facebook. I think what it does, when I mentioned Abel and Cole and Riverford, for instance, I think what it does is it levels the playing field, and that doesn't really need explaining. I think that's a very obvious, statement. We as small producers don't have their resources, basically, their economic resources or their human resources, and we need to make what we have work very effectively. And I think again, a lot of small producers have found this, is that this tool and the internet makes marketing much more easy for us. Our website is again integral with the social media. We've got Facebook, Twitter links, as it's all very familiar, I suspect, to you nowadays. Having said that, I think we're building up some sort of picture, and the longer we go on building it, and the more photographs. These are obviously very important photographs, because I send these to Pete, and he then posts them on Facebook and every week. And you just build up a catalogue of how the farm's been going through the year. And I think my sense is, people don't read that much, but when they see a picture, it tells 1,000 stories, as you say. So I'll give you a quick rundown of I'm going to need my glasses on for this. Where are they? There they are. Okay, so this is a quick rundown. Bear with me, and I think some of them are quite funny, but basically I think they're quite staggering in some ways. 60% users, internet users are members of Facebook and other social media sites. 43% increase in that since 2007. 22% of all time spent online is on Twitter and Facebook. 35% of under 30-year-olds check their social media accounts before getting out of bed. That's pretty incredible. In the UK, we have 31 million Facebook users, which is half the population. And 23% of Facebook users log in at least 5 times a day. 70% of marketers use Facebook to gain new customers. And the last one, which I find quite interesting, being in my mid-50s, it's not just for the young. 60% of 50 to 60-year-olds are now active on Facebook. So I think you can just get the flavour of, that this is something we just cannot ignore. And I talked to a number of other of my fellow growers, and they're not all using it, and I wonder why. But anyway, I think the results we get have been, they're sort of proving to me that actually it's a very, very powerful tool. Just quickly, I mentioned the targeting marketing. So again, maybe some of you are familiar with this, but it was completely new to me. I had a friend in West Wales, and he started using paying for adverts on Facebook. And essentially what you do, I don't know how you do that technically, but he told me that what you do is you basically place the advert and you can target postcodes. Don't ask me about the politics of that. That's too tricky to go into in this particular talk. But however, from a small producer's point of view, £30 spent targeting Swindon, which we did the other day. We got about 30 to 40 replies, and I suspect probably we might get a 50% to 60% take-up of boxes on that particular advert. Now, that's a lot of money for a small producer, and it's also, for me, to increase my numbers from, we're doing about 120 boxes at the moment, to, I probably need to increase them by about another 40, 50 boxes possibly. Well, 15 boxes in one hit with one advert of £30, you can work that out. It's a very, very cost-effective way of getting to people, basically. We've had a few issues with it. We have to have a few filters now. We've learned very quickly that, people can flick around with this thing, and we give a free box. I think it says up there, our first box is free, which is a bit more bold than Abel and Cole, who do the third or fourth box free. But we're prepared to take that risk, and if people just want to basically try and get a free box out of us, well, that's fair enough. We'll take that risk. But we have put a few more filters in place to try and stop that happening, like getting them to fill in terms and conditions and things like that. So we're learning as we go along, and it's not all plain sailing, but I think on average, it's actually a very, very valuable thing to do. I'm going to run out of things to say in a minute, so I think that's probably, I'm getting close to the end. But in sort of, just wrapping up, my experience with, I think that the main thing I would say is that I haven't got enough time I've got enough time to grow the vegetables, but I have not got enough time to play around with this, because it's, as you know, it's all absorbing and it can suck you in very quickly. And the idea of being able to pay someone weekly to manage that for me and to work with me on a sort of very detailed level on what's going on the farm, and to give out put out a profile of what we're doing is incredibly valuable to me as a grower. So that's social media from my point of view. Thank you.
Thank you very much.